What is up, friends? Rob here, the Medicare minister, and I'm back with a brand new Spitting Fire Leadership Podcast interview for you today. And I'm with the $100 million man, Mr. John Wetmore himself. John, will you say hey to everyone real quickly?
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. I know you're going to spit some serious fire today. And as always, we do this because I believe that all of you deserve to win. And I know John is going to share something today that's going to compel you, that's going to push you, that's going to motivate you to go after your dreams and be the leader that I know that all of you were created to be. And so, John, once again, man, thanks for being on the podcast today. And what I always do to kind of start this thing off is simply to get a little backstory, or I call it the Sports Center highlight version of your life for time's sake. But can you give us a little bit about where you came from, a little bit of the transition, and then where you're at today?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, mine is like the Sports Center low light reel at the beginning.
Right.
You know, it didn't start out all glamorous for sure. My background, I grew up in Boston, or just outside of Boston. Grew up in the projects, single mom, welfare kid, till, I don't know, I was 14 or so. We probably lived in that area. Yeah, 15 probably.
Right.
Lived in that area. Mom got us out of that area my sophomore year in high school. And I had a baby coming about 9 months later. So I was 16 and pregnant. And I obviously wasn't the pregnant one, but before the show existed, I was that world. So early on was, I was working full time while I was in high school, paying daycare bills, and, went through, I was in the restaurant, like a pizza joint, for like 4 years, moved on to a warehouse job, did that overnights, put myself through college, full time during the day. So I worked full time at night, went to school full time during the day. And at that point I had 2 kids and, I briefly got into the mortgage business, tried that, had a little bit of success for like 6 months, but I always tell people I spent like I signed a record deal with Jay-Z, and I wasn't making that kind of money really, but it was the first time I had a sniff of money in my life. Problem was, it was like 06, 07 came around, the whole world fell apart, and I lost that and everything else that I had acquired through debt in the few months I was making a few bucks. So lost a house, had a car taken away, bankruptcy, got divorced. It was a disaster for a while. But I got into insurance at about 35. I was doing accounting. So after all that stuff, I started doing accounting work. I got an accounting degree, did accounting work, was making like 40 grand a year, dude. At 35, 40 grand was the most I'd really ever made. Minus, again, a brief minute in the mortgage business, I made a couple bucks. But was introduced to the insurance business at about 35, and this was in 2012. And slow start, but kind of the rest is history.
Yeah.
I didn't start out killing it here either, though. But that's the brief, and depending on what you want from there, I can certainly, the last 9 years has been a ridiculous ride, and gone from a part-time insurance agent, just figuring out how to like communicate with human beings and learn sales and learn how to dial. And because I had no clue how to do that. And I was a disaster at the beginning. I quit the first time I dialed, actually.
Wow.
My first dial day, I put like 30 minutes into it, got hung up on a bunch and quit. I was like, this ain't for me. So a couple of years later, got back into it in 2012 and, committed to at least going through the process this time. I was like, I saw some people having some success, and I was like, if those guys can do it, I can too. I've never struggled with that thought. And this was the first time I had an opportunity where people were willing to help me and guide me through it and coach me and just be honest and tell me the things I was bad at. And, I became a student of the game, man. And 9 years later, we're doing ridiculous numbers. So it's the short version, the highlight reel.
Yeah. I love what you were talking about. I came from a single mom too. My mom had me when she was 15. Had my brother when she was 17. And I was thinking about, even you were talking about having a kid at age 16, that a lot of times we don't realize that you can turn the mess, if you will, into a message. Right. And that a lot of times people are paralyzed by the mess instead of letting it use it as a platform right? To propel you towards your purpose. And it sounds like you did that. And even throughout the different jobs, same thing. I'm guilty, man. I was trying everything, trying to find something. I was one of those slow starters, if you will.
Yeah.
And finally found what really my purpose was. And so let me ask you this: as you got into the insurance business and you talked about giving up on your first dial day, real quickly, when I called John the $100 million man, it's actually more than that. But that is your whole agency or organization writing 100 million plus in premium. Is that correct?
Just for this year already.
Yeah.
In 2021, we're at 105 year to date so far.
So let me ask you this real quickly, because I think a lot of people are so quick to discount what they went through, the warehouse job, the restaurant job. But let me just start with, let me go focus on the accounting for a minute.
Yeah.
What was it about being an accountant that you believe contributed? Because I think so many people discount that they don't realize that it's the journey and it's the process. You can take something from every stop. Being an accountant, what do you think taking away from that season contributed to allow you to get to the success where you're at today? Can you think of one or two things?
Yeah, I mean, on the positive side of the accounting work, I mean, that world taught me how to track things, how to operate a business, how to look at a business from a numbers perspective. You know, I was in several different businesses in accounting. I think I want to say I had 4 accounting jobs total, and all of them were reliant on me tracking numbers. That way we could kind of analyze the business, see what pieces of the business were working and which weren't, and then go, all right, this part's working really well. Let's use this to scale. You know, if we're putting money over here and it's growing at a 2% rate, we're putting money over here and it's growing at 20% rate. Let's stop putting money here and put it all over here. You know, and you can kind of adjust your workings every day. And I see now a lot of just people in general, much less in the insurance business, don't pay attention to their money at all. They don't track their activity. They don't track. And I've had multiple jobs that have helped me with that. Hell, the warehouse job, I was tracked. They counted how many boxes I stuck into a truck at night.
Right.
You know, I had a customer service job. At one point I worked for like AT&T, taking, like when you call for 611, you get, you know, the help customer service to complain about your bill or the app you downloaded, you don't want, whatever. I was that guy, but same thing. They tracked how much time I was there versus how much time I was talking to clients, and it had to hit certain percentages. So I started using those skill sets in this business. And I paid attention to how many dials per hour I was making. Because at the beginning, I was one of those guys that was like, man, I dialed all day and didn't have any luck.
Right.
But I'd make like 64 dials. And I'm like, dude, the call center and the warehouse would have fired me because I didn't actually dial all day. I just took all day to make a few dials.
Right.
You know, so a lot of the pacing, a lot of the tracking, a lot of the business sense of it, I definitely got from the accounting world and even prior jobs, you know, and just those simple things have helped me see this business, and not in a mean way, but dude, I turned this whole thing into a numbers game, you know, and it's not that I don't have a desire to help people. I mean, certainly that's there, but the negative side of the business cripples a lot of people. And that side of it, for me, I turned into a complete numbers game. This became like a sport to me. And I'm like, all right, so there's negatives. Instead of getting emotional like I used to at the beginning, I just started to anticipate the negatives and understand, like, I just had to work with them, you know, and like in retail, in some of the accounting jobs, like we had waste and we had theft, and, you know, in the restaurant world, you definitely had spoilage and all kinds of stuff that just normal part of business. And I started relating like no shows to spoilage and chargebacks to theft, and Walmart don't shut down if they have a bunch of theft. They just adjust their pricing and sell more. Right. And so it gave me a different level of insight, man, for sure.
As the people that you've coached, or just in our industry, which is the insurance industry, obviously I do more the Medicare side, but we do life as well. You're more in the life. But do you think that, why do you think people are so challenged in tracking their numbers? Is it an accountability thing? They don't really want to know that they're not dialing all day, as we would say. Do you think it's just an ignorant thing that they just don't know how? What have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, I think certainly it's a combination. I hear people go like, I don't know how to track. I don't know Excel.
Right.
I'm like, dude, use crayons and a napkin.
Right.
Like, you don't have to be an Excel wizard to keep track of stuff. And people are funny, like they don't keep track of things. I'm like, I mean, you keep track of your kids and you
Right.
keep track of like your electric bill. If you know what I
Right.
mean? Or like, I always
Right.
joke with people. I'm like, dude, if your electric bill was double this month, you'd notice, right?
Right.
Like, how do you like stop telling yourself you don't know how to do stuff and learn how to do it? And I think there's certainly a certain demographic of people who get into this business, and it's much more of an employee mindset. They expect everything to be done for them and to
Right.
roll out of bed and be rich. There's certainly that demographic, but a decent amount of people that come work with us, they understand it's a business, and I really truly think, man, if they, and I had to experience this, when I looked myself in the mirror and really looked at my numbers, and I'm like, dude, I call myself full time. But if I really break down the numbers and go, like, how many people am I sitting a week? 8, 12 at the time, at an hour a pop. You know what I mean? And I'm going, a dial takes a minute. So if I'm making 150 dials in a week and I'm sitting 10 people, I'm like, I don't know, what's that? 12 hours of work?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I had to look myself in the mirror and go like, dude, you're expecting to have this high level result, but your work ethic, you're selling yourself that you're working more than you are. Right. And I see a lot of people fall into that. It's like it's like a client that goes like, I can't afford it, or I was just curious, or I didn't fill it out. Like all the stuff they sell us, an agent, they were broke, they couldn't do it. I'm like, you bought that?
Yeah.
And people sell themselves these excuses on why they can't do something or why they're not having the level of success. And then they buy it too. They sell themselves and they buy it. I'm like, so I do believe, man, every time I have someone struggling, before I will help them or answer them, I have them give me 4 things. I go, give me, in our world, we're a lead world. I don't know if everybody watching is in the lead world, but we buy leads. That's our business model. Sure. So I'm like, give me your lead spend. Give me 2 months lead spend, how many appointments you've run, your issue paid, and your deposits. You give me those 4 things separated by month. What I've learned, I can solve the problem 100% of the time. The cool thing I've learned is when I have people do it, like 80% of them, when they come to me, I'm like, all right, what'd you learn? And they know everything they missed. It's just them doing the exercise. They discover it for themselves. And, guys were like, I ran 42 appointments last month. Like, okay. Yeah. In my world, I'm like, you're begging to be broke. Right. With that, or be inconsistent. Maybe you'll get lucky sometimes. So yeah, man, I think it's a big problem, even though everyone knows, especially in my world, dude, that's all I talk about. Like, keep track of your stuff and hold yourself accountable to it. Yeah. No,
I love what you said, that they sell themselves, but not only that, they believe it. They start believing it and buying into 100%. It. So no, I definitely love that. Let me ask you this. Obviously, from the warehouse, through the journey to 100 million plus, this year as an agency, just for this year, what was the biggest breakthrough for you as a leader that you had to have to get to this point?
Man, realizing I was the problem, dude.
Wow.
And what that allowed me to do was then be the solution, and
sure.
So I was, man, I struggled dealing with people in general, coming in, clients and agents. But I would say on the agent side, I didn't realize how different we all are internally, how differently we process stuff. Right. I just assumed everybody thought the same, and I assumed everybody wanted to have a high level of success. Even though I hadn't been successful, I always wanted to be. I assumed everyone, so I made a lot of assumptions about people. And when I started growing the agency, I would have a high level of frustration for those that didn't perform at a high level, or at the very least put in a high level of activity. Sure. Their efforts and their willingness to be a student. I would get frustrated. And I realized I was projecting my desires, my goals on other people. And the frustration came from like a lack of clarity, right? We're just on different pages. So I really had to learn how to understand where people were at in life, where they wanted to go, and what they were willing to sacrifice to get there. Because I could give you the plan no matter where you wanted to be.
Right.
Right. And I had to learn, just like clients, when we deal with, I don't know, a 22-year-old kid who's like drinking Budweiser when you get at the house versus a 72-year-old widow, we handle them different.
Right.
But in the agent world, we tend to be like a one-trick pony and handle all the agents the same. And I had to learn how to have the same dynamic abilities with agents as I did with clients, and just treat each person as an individual and get to know them a little bit and understand their motivations and where they want to be, and just get really transparent with people so we're on the same page and communicate well. And that took away the frustration for me, and and I'm sure it was probably a very sobering moment, right? To go, wait a minute.
I just did a video this morning for my TikTok called Speaking Their Language. Leaders learn to speak their language. As a former pastor and church planner and someone who's been in the ministry for 20 plus years, as well as leading people professionally, that was a hard thing for me because I'm a doer by nature, right? Like I just want to do, go. And my personality type sometimes tends to sacrifice relationships for results. And I had to learn people and of course, over the past 20 something years, learn people, understand, to speak their language, to get at their level so I can understand where they're really coming from. And it sounds like you really did that. You're talking about being the problem and then learning to be the solution. What, besides the clarity, right? Was there some action steps? Did you study some books? Did you listen to some podcasts? Did you find a mentor to help you with that, to learn how to understand people better?
Yeah, I became like a student of me, even. Really, I had to understand my flaws. I started reading like crazy. I'd never read really my whole life, honestly. I was the guy in school that would read the back of the book to do the book report, like the back cover.
Right.
And so I started studying self-development and successful people, and the John Gordons and John Maxwell's, and I could name a ton of them, just the successful people of the world, all the traditional success books. I've read all of them.
Right.
And that really, I started seeing a lot of similarities in the people that were having success and the changes that they had to make on themselves before they started seeing. So that was a big piece of it, man. I love podcasts. I listen to a ton of different podcasts.
Right.
And then I certainly found some people in my world that were willing to tell me the truth, and coach me through things. And I was willing to hear the truth. I'm like, dude, just tell me. I'm good. I just want to know. I can be oblivious to things by nature. I can miss things. So the people in my world that are close to me, they know if I'm like it's okay to tell me. If I'm doing something really stupid, just tell me. Right. And thankfully I had some good people around me that, Mike Killamet was my closest mentor, but I had a bunch of others in the industry that have helped me through the years really discover and fine tune things. And, probably one of the things I learned to do the best to deliver, like I had to really learn when I spoke, I had to learn what people heard, not just what I was saying, because they weren't always the same.
That's good, man. Yeah.
And for me, analogies have helped. Like they've saved me, dude. I've learned and studied how to really give analogies to help people understand things, because in general context, man, people understand effort equals result in every situation.
Right.
But it's when they're in the moment, especially here, people, myself included, become emotional. And we make poor decisions at that point.
Right.
We make decisions based on emotion instead of the logic. So I've learned with analogies and references, whether it's something you've done in your career or children or, going to medical school, I can make some analogy and go, this level of effort is never going to produce this level of result. And if I can relate it to something you're familiar with, I can get you to discover that you're not doing the thing. Instead of me hammering you and go, hey, you're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong.
Right.
I can ask you a line of questions, make some analogies, and you go like, oh, so you're saying like, exactly. And that's saved me, man, is really understanding that dynamic between what's in here, getting it out, and having you hear it the way I want to deliver it. Because I never had ill intentions, but people took things, I was direct, man. I've always been direct.
Sure.
So now I've learned to be really direct, but deliver it appropriately.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. Listen, if you're watching this today, John's dropping some gold, man. Like he's spitting some fire today, because I believe this is a challenge a lot of leaders have. But I want to go back to something real quickly. I think one of the biggest challenges leaders, and I'd like for you to speak to this because you referenced it a little bit, about surrounding yourself with not just yes men or yes women. I think so many leaders do that. Right. And you said, I'm not scared for my people to tell me the truth, right? In my circle. Like I'm this kind of person. I tell people, offend me if it helps me get better. You know what I mean? I may get up in my feelings for a second, but I'll get over it if it helps me be a leader, because I have tons of blind spots. And so I don't want to surround myself people, yes men and yes women. I want to surround myself with people that see what I don't see, so I can get better. And it sounds like you've adopted that same philosophy.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think getting better is a struggle. I still struggle. It's still hard. And if it's not hard, it means I'm being complacent.
Yep. That's good.
And for sure, man, it's like I had to put myself, like, if you're in an environment where people are like agreeing with you all the time, we're probably having a little bit of a pity party. Most people. Does that make sense? Like if everything's always, and if you're not at the level of success you want, and you're around other people that are at a similar level, if you pay attention, most y'all listening, to your words throughout the day and how many of them are negative. Like if you really pay attention to it and take note of it, like it made me sick. And I'm like, I don't want to be in this world. And, Sean Mike, who runs he's the president of FFL, he was super helpful. And I'd be, any of us, he did this, all of us, we'd be out in the field and it's like, I had a no-show, boo-hoo. I had a chargeback.
Right.
You know what I mean? This one canceled, whatever. And you're
right.
Boo-hooing.
Yeah.
He'd be like, hey, dude, why don't you drive by the local hospital, man, and go to the cancer ward? You'll feel better about your day. Be thankful you don't have terminal cancer. He'd say just stuff like that. And I'm like,
right.
Well, I mean, because the guy in the cancer ward would rather be no-showed than be going through what he's going through. And it's like, is that like harsh? I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd rather have the opportunity to fail than not have the opportunity, and it's like, and so now I'm just pay attention, man. It's like, if you just talk to people, it's like, hey man, how are you? Most people are like, another day. It's okay. I'm just getting by. I mean, people ask me, I'm like, dude, I'm doing great. I'm alive, me too, man. And I'm here.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think having people around, man, that were willing to not let me have a pity party, not let me be negative, and really challenge me to think differently, and that's allowed me to then pass that same knowledge and ability on to other people. And I've had so many people now thank me for being really direct and honest with them over the years, because it's changed their life.
Right.
Same as mine was changed from people being honest and direct with me. It's like, if you're not having some level of success and you've done A, B, C, D through your career, I'm like, you're the common denominator in all of them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like there has to be there's something to be said about that. Yeah. And there's so much success out there in the world. And what's crazy is the better I do financially, the more I realize how little money I make relative to what's out there. There are some insanely successful people, man.
Right.
And it's like the different crowds I get in, I'm like, I ain't done nothing yet. I'm not, there's people's just doing all kinds of amazing things in this world to help others. And I'm like, I got a long way to go, man. So I'm on a mission to help a ton of people.
Sure.
Do really cool things in life.
Sure. No, man, I totally agree. You talking about the truth will set you free. That will set you free right there if you're watching today. And what John is ultimately saying is quit selling yourself a watered down version of the truth, right? Yeah. Own it. Maybe John's talking to us today and we're the problem, right? And we got to look in the mirror and take a sobering look. It's a hard thing to do, but listen, he just took us to Leadership Church, man. He was spitting some fire. And he's challenging us today to take an honest look that if we're not where we want to be today, we need to take an honest look in the mirror. We maybe need to change our circle and get around people that are going to actually, tell us the truth, because we all want to be free, but it takes going through the truth and hearing the truth to get there. So thank you, John, for sharing that. Let me ask you this real quickly. I heard in one interview, you talked about leading from the front. Will you expound on that just for a second?
Yeah, I think, it's like being the model, in our world, certainly, like, people sometimes come into our world and they're like, well, before I hire, I want to prove the model. I'm like, dude, we've proved the model. Can you just execute? And there is something to be said for, like, when I was selling at a low level, I had a harder time growing the agency. One, it was less money, but two, I wasn't that attractive to work with. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I can promote everything that FFL and all the people around me had to offer. But at the end of the day, there's no confusion that when you hire someone, they're certainly looking at you for some type of leadership, and changing from a very mediocre producer, dude, I was doing like 8, 10, 12 grand a month in production, which in my world is not, it's laughable. It's like 2 apps a week.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's nothing significant. To being one of the top producers in the country, my top year, I issued like 460 on my own pen. And that did a few things, man. One, it like, I think some of us that build, many people, we're trying to build for the override and for the money, and that's hard to grow, dude. When I was selling at a high level, I didn't need the money. I'm like, I'm printing money on my own pen.
Right.
But what I wanted to do was really have an impact on people, like several had on me. And I'm like, when I didn't need the agents, it's weird how many of them wanted to work with me, and that leading from the front really allowed me to be more direct with people. It allowed me to, like, not accept excuses. It allowed me to speak the language from experience. I've walked the walk, dude. I've done everything in this business, every piece of it in my sector of the business anyway. And, when people give me excuses, I'm like, dude, I remember selling myself on that garbage. Here's how you get out of it. And I'm not one of these guys that came in elite. So I have zero sympathy for someone that says, I'm not doing well, and here's all the excuses why. Right. I'm like, because I've seen time and time again with activity never matches where they want to be when they're negative, and for me, dude, leading from the front changed everything. And it gave me a different perspective. It gave me, certainly if like one of Maxwell's books, The 5 Levels of Leadership, is one of my favorites. It increased my number to other people, because now I wasn't just some positional guy who hired them off a random ad. Like, I was someone that was doing something. And then I started to get a track record for being able to teach other people to do it. And that gave me another higher level of leadership to others. And it really allowed my business to scale at a faster pace, and being that trendsetter in different ways, even in the business sense, or investing or scaling on the business side, not just the selling side. It's allowed me to, like, kind of open the door for others where that wouldn't have necessarily been the case had I not been proactive and led from the front and tried new things that weren't, especially as FFL was young, man. We were trying to figure this world out. Right. And now we've got this thing so fine tuned. It's like, you just got to run the play here today. Yeah. But that willingness to lead and be out front and make those mistakes, it's just allowed me to speak to people at a different level and go, like, I hear you. I hear your words. But trust me, here's the path out, and I've walked it. So people take those, they at least respect the words a little bit more, because they know I've gone through the journey, and done what they want to do. So sure. It's helped, man.
I love what you said early on about the attraction, attracting people. John Maxwell actually says that you attract who you are. Yeah. Right. And I think many leaders discount that. They don't transform into something. What's one tip that you could give somebody, maybe a leader out there who's like, I feel like I'm repelling people. Like, I don't feel like nobody wants to work with me. Can you give them just some one practical tip that they could implement today that would help them going from a repeller of people to an attractor of people?
Yeah. I mean, I think one, accepting that the reason that you're repelling people is because of things you're doing day in and day out. It's just what it is, and I think once you own that, at least then you can work on yourself. Right. And I think if you're trying to really lead, you've got to do it from a perspective of actually dude, my desire to have a guy that is broke,
right,
and get him to call it 250 grand a year, just being conservative, and him be able to sit at dinner one day with his wife and kids and be like, dude, this guy, John, and this one, and this one. Remember when we were, I get to tell stories of like when me and Steph were cutting coupons to go grocery shopping to like Mike Killamet, being able to, Killamet's who mentored me. He was telling a story yesterday, and we were looking at an investment opportunity last year. And it was the opportunity to buy like public housing, like projects where I grew up. And we're sitting there in this meeting where we're having an opportunity to invest in this thing. He's like, dude, how does it feel to go from like living in the projects to getting to buy one? And if you have the willingness to change and adjust yourself and really look at this thing, like, are you actually doing this to help change people's world?
Right.
Because the minute I really started focusing on helping you go out and make 30, 40, 50 grand a month,
right,
regardless of the outcome, regardless of my income, regardless of anything, I'm truly like trying to help your world. Dude, the money just came. When it was like about the money, it was different, man. So it's like, you got to really look at your values and what you're trying to accomplish in life and act accordingly, man.
No, that's good, man. That's so good. What's the number one thing you look for in people when you're trying to recruit them? Is there one characteristic that you're looking for in somebody?
Yeah, I'd give a few. I want someone that's going to be coachable. I want someone that's going to do the things they say they're going to do, whatever those are. They don't have to be my desires. You don't have to want to make $1 zillion.
Right.
But if you say you're going to do A, B, and C, I'm looking for people who do A, B, and C, whatever that is to you. I have some people that are excited out of their mind making 80 grand a year, running 10 appointments a week.
Yeah. Hey,
but that's where they want to be in life. And I've given them that path. So again, for me, it's big on coachability. It's big on, again, doing the things because I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do.
Sure.
And if I ain't going to do it, I'm going to tell you I ain't going to do it.
Right.
So can we just be there and just communicate? And if those things change, it's okay.
Right.
But can we communicate?
Right.
So I need someone that's willing to communicate, be coachable, and do the things you say you're going to do. Those are the big things I'm looking for, man. Because that I can mold.
Yeah. What is one leadership principle that you've learned, you've really leaned into, and that you lead from when you're leading others? Is there one specific? I know we may have multiple. I know that, but is there one that you go, this is really my leadership principle that I really lean into? I've learned it. I've cultivated it in my life, and this is one that I really lead from.
Yeah, I think it might be a Maxwell thing. I've heard it from Killamet like 19 zillion times, but I think he took it from Maxwell. Right. Leadership is taken, not given. And a lot of people like sit back and they wait for me to bless them to be a manager or bless them to lead from the front I'm like, dude, I don't have any magic fairy dust to make you a leader. Right. You're either going to lead or you're not. You know what I mean? And that's helped me is really just go like those that are going to lead. Because in this business, a lot of people they'll hire a few people and they're like, that's going to be my guy. I'm going to help him grow. Right. Well, dude, if he ain't trying to grow on his own, you aren't going to help him grow at all. Right. So for me, I'm looking for people who are trying to lead. Maybe they just need help with it, but I don't have to beg them to lead. I don't have to drag them to manage people. I don't have to force them to get on trainings. I want people who are somewhat natural leaders by nature. Right. Because again, then I can mold it, and I think a lot of people try to give leadership to others. And that really can't be done. It's very temporary. No, that's so good, man. I always ask this in everyone that comes on the podcast. What is one word that you would use to describe yourself? Man, one word. What do I want to do? Consistent. So knowing that about yourself, consistency or being consistent, how has that contributed to the overall success from the warehouse to the $100 million plus? How has that consistency played a part? So I'll give you an example. Yeah, I told you my top year I issued, not sold, because some people are sold and it's submit. Like I issued 460 grand. Right. And I'm a number tracker, and I always tracked Mike's numbers as well, because that wasn't his thing. He was good with people. I was good with numbers. So we kind of worked together to help each other. And that year, I week to week, so there's 52 weeks in a year, I was only the number one producer 4 weeks out of 52.
Right.
So 4 weeks out of 52, I was the number one producer for the week in our agency of hundreds of people. But for the year, I issued 460. The number two guy ended at 250. So I was rarely the top guy week in and week out. But dude, at the end of the year, I ended up 200 grand ahead of the second place dude. And it's the same way with I don't do anything that amazing to grow the business, in my opinion. I do it every day. Every day. This is every single day. I've hired every day for 9 years. I haven't missed a day. It's just what we do, you know, and some people are like, well, that's crazy. Yeah, I have a lot of systems in place. I have a lot of ads, but I don't ever go through lulls where I'm like, well, let me turn the ads off for a couple months. You know what I mean? I'm hiring when I'm sleeping at this stage. Yeah. So it's just, man, it's allowed me to pull away over time, because you may be better, but dude, if I do it every day, I can outrun people in the long run. And I've seen it time and time again, man. I don't have to be the best, but I ain't stopping.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. One thing you said, I want to ask this real quickly as we get ready to wrap up here, is I love what you said, systems, because I believe so many leaders don't understand. I come from a church planning and ministry world, and a lot of ministers didn't realize that systems really just helped you communicate the vision and execute the vision at a higher level. Can you talk about systems for a minute? Like, how has systems helped you get to the point to where maybe you were here, but now 100 million plus? How has the system or systems helped you get there?
Yeah, it's been everything, man, for us, for our growth. And, you know, systems evolve forever. You know, what I do today isn't exactly what I did 9 years ago, but I couldn't do today if I wasn't willing to go through the learning curve of the systems 9 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like people want to get, they're starting out and they're like, well, can I do what you do today? I'm like, I mean, it doesn't make sense for you to do it today. Like, you need a system for your stage. And as simple as, again, dude, if you're tracking things with crayons and napkins, but you do it every Sunday, that's a system.
Right.
If you always order leads on this day, it doesn't have to be this. And we have a pretty elaborate system now, but it doesn't have to be. And mine always wasn't, but I was always intentional. And what I look for, I'm like an efficiency freak. I like to be as efficient as possible, because when you combine the efficiency with the consistency, man, crazy things happen. And I don't like having to do things repetitively. I think it's stupid. I think that there's smart people out there, Bill Gates being one of them, that has created some stupid programs that allow things to happen automatically.
Right.
And as simple as, I can remember going back in time when I first started building, man, you know, I found myself sending the same training videos to new agents, but I would always have to go look it up and go find it.
Right.
So I created just a little notepad in my phone with the top 10 things I always sent out. So I saved time from looking them up. Then I remember in like Gmail, when we started I'd send the same email, like, hey, here's how you get started, Bob, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, why am I typing this 15 times a week? And then I found templates, right? And then I started creating things like, I'm like, all right, templates are great, but why can't I create a form that when I fill in their name, it automatically emails them everything? Right. You know, it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And that every time we see something where there's like a flaw in what we do, or we miss something, or something gets lost in the shuffle, we create something to patch that hole. You know, so if you're really paying attention to your business and you're willing to make mistakes, are part of the game. Right. If you ain't making mistakes, you ain't getting better. Right. So I'm okay with the mistakes. I don't like repeated mistakes. Right. Because I think repeated mistakes are your fault. Right. Like, if you didn't learn from the first one, like, you did the second one on purpose. Sure. So all of our systems have been to patch holes that we found along the way and just make it more efficient, more effective. be able to communicate more clearly to everybody. So we have a full suite of automation today. I mean, what we do today is bananas, but it's developed over the years, just through trial and error, man, and trying to be more efficient and effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big person and advocate of excellence. And I love what you're saying about efficiency and excellence, because, you've heard this too. We've all heard this, I live in the South, so I have to do it in a Southern accent. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't believe that. I believe that if it ain't broke, you try to you every day, you get better with it, right? You tweak it, you get better, more efficient with it. And I love that, because I think so many people are sabotaging the success because they're not willing to adopt a new system and grow into something that's going to make things more efficient and more excellent. So thank you for bringing that up. So as we wrap up here today, John, and man, you've been so generous with your time, bro. And I appreciate it. My audience appreciates it. What about final words of wisdom? Like, what if somebody's out there, and I know we're in the insurance space, but I have people in different spaces that watch this, just entrepreneurs in general. What are some words of wisdom that you would give someone that maybe is about to quit? Right? Maybe they've been beat up by this thing called life. Maybe they got a little messy story like yours and like mine. Maybe they can't find that right thing they're looking for. What are some John Wetmore words of wisdom as we wrap up today?
Yeah, man, good. That's a good one. I would think, especially for someone that's on the verge of quitting, like you've got to believe in yourself. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
And without getting crazy religious, man, I believe God put us all here to do crazy.
Man.
And for me, it's like, even if I go, let's just be, what's the word I want to use? Anyway, if I just, let's look at like any industry you're in. Mm-hmm. Like, I have people that come to me and they're like, I'm not having success, and here's all the reasons why. One of my questions is always like, is there anyone doing what you do, even at your company, that's having success? The answer is always yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so what do you think you're doing different than them?
Right.
And if you don't have a relationship with that person, or they aren't willing to give you a relationship, find someone who is, because I've learned, man, successful people are willing to help others that are doing.
Come on.
If you're doing, you will find someone that's willing to help and give that hand, because we've all had help having success. Mm-hmm. I didn't do this by myself, bro. And I think it's like one of our core values in our office here is execution. And there's a path out there for success in any industry.
Sure.
You can look up how to be successful doing anything, right? Today.
Right.
Unless you're trying to create something new, there's proven success out there already. But are you willing to go execute? Because the path is there. In what you do, there's a path to multi-millions, and the path to what I do, there's multi-millions. And literally every industry across the board has that. And if you're in it, if you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be tough. Right. Like, if you believe, and if you don't, you should. If you believe that you can accomplish what another man has accomplished just by going through those things, now all you really got to do is go execute. Yeah. Because you don't have to recreate anything. But if you're coachable and willing to follow a path, then all you have to do is daily execute, every day execute. And the cool thing is, man, what I love is, like, we all have life. We all got life, man. We all got crap. Life's punched us all in the face.
Right.
And that's part of your story. Yeah. So it's cool. Do you want to have a story that's always like in the gutter and always complaining and always negative? Or do you want to climb out of that spot you're in and be able to tell that story and the steps you took to get out of it, to be able to give that to someone else? Because I've studied a lot of successful people, man, and very few of them like rolled out of the womb like with a silver spoon in their mouth. Right. Most have climbed. And the adversity in life, I think, is a test to see how bad you want it. And if you aren't willing to go through the adversity and things, like, you fail the test, you can't be successful if you aren't willing to go through that. So I think it's part of the process. So accept it, get through it, and life goes on, and it gets easier. I get to look back and, dude, I feel proud of some of the crap I went through, man, and stuck with it. Sure. And it's a good feeling. And now I can give that feeling I can kind of give people a taste of it before they get it. And it's inspiring for people, you know, so go out and make something amazing happen and allow your story to inspire and motivate other people one day.
Yeah. I think so many times people discount their story, and I get it. Maybe we've all made some mistakes. Same thing. You know, I've made plenty of mistakes and still make a lot of them. And as I'm learning and I'm growing, but I use my story, I use that message to help other people live on purpose and to live on mission. So thank you for sharing that. John, where can we find you? I mean, I know you're a recruiter. I know you have your own agency, but social media, Facebook, IG, TikTok, where can we find you?
I'm everywhere, man. So if you go to johnwetmore.com, which is Wetmore, people spell it all kinds of weird ways.
Right.
But johnwetmore.com, that'll link to everything of mine. All my socials, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I mean, I have all of them, but I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram for sure.
Right.
I'm not hard to find.
You're right.
You put me out there.
And you're pumping out tons of content on YouTube as well, right? A lot of training stuff
everywhere.
Yeah.
We're starting to put it everywhere, man. I was a little shy about some of that stuff at the beginning because I'm like, who the hell, that like imposter syndrome. I got that too, bro.
Right.
I'm like, who am I?
Yeah.
But man, I've learned people enjoy it and it helps other people. So I'm like, whatever, we're going to keep creating stuff. And we just hired someone new this week to come in and take that role on full time. So we're cranking out content, man.
Well, awesome. Well, listen, thank you for being on the Spitting Fire podcast today. And once again, being so generous with your time. And as we wrap up today, listen, I do this and sit down with leaders like John and others in various industries because I believe this, and John alluded to this, and this is my belief, that there's a creator who created you on purpose for a purpose. So isn't today the perfect day to start living on purpose? And I pray that something that John said and that we talked about today puts fresh wind in your sails, motivates you, encourages you, inspires you, causes you to dig down really, really deep and go, you know what? Isn't it about time that I start to win in this thing called life? And so I want to remind you, as always, to please like, comment, subscribe below, because you'll be notified every time we drop fresh content like this. John, once again, thank you for being on. Listen, God bless you guys. Make it an awesome day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Later. Appreciate you, bro.